So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Desert Hot Springs, a city founded on water.
I want to thank everybody for coming out this day. We have a unique town with unique water, and we hope to present that. Amber and I are excited to do that with you. Next slide, please. Here's what we're going to talk about: the discovery of water, hot, cold and hot, the founding of Desert Hot Springs, California's spa city develops because of the hot water, Desert Hot Springs, our amazing cold water, and the replenishment water from the State Water Project. The first section here is the discovery of water. When you've got water, you can build a city. Go ahead. And what I have messed up, take it from here.
So the discovery of water. When the Homestead Act occurred, signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln on May 20th, 1862, the Homestead Act encouraged Western migration by providing settlers 160 acres of public land. In exchange, homesteaders were paid a small filing fee, they paid a small filing fee, and were required to complete 5 years of residence before they received ownership of the land. Next slide, please. Jack Riley is reported to have been the first white man to set foot in what is now Desert Hot Springs, somewhere around 1908. The first person to actually live here was Hilda Gray, a woman described as a diminutive, feminine, hardworking, and rugged pioneer. Her homestead was just south of what today is known as Two Bunch Palms. She was here when Cabot Yerxa arrived in 1913, and she homesteaded for 4 years and then moved to Arcadia to resume her career as a legal secretary. The discovery of water, 1900 to 1932. Cabot Yerxa was born in 1883, died 1965. There he is writing Merry Christmas with Babe from Hilda Gray in tow.
You can imagine back in that time frame, there was really no one here. Palm Springs had a little town that was developing, and we had people coming out to the desert to find a place to live. A little bit about Cabot. His father, Frederick Yerxa, operated the largest mercantile business in Boston. He opened a trading post on the Sioux Reservation in 1882, helping settle the Dakota Territory. Cabot would be born there in 1883. In 1899, following the Spanish-American War, Frederick Yerxa, as an American businessman, would go to Cuba with Cabot and his mother taking part in the expansion of American business. If I was to add something here, you can see as a young person, a baby practically, Cabot was taken places and was exposed to things that back in that era, you typically were born and you died in the same area that you found yourself. Eventually, at the turn of the century, Frederick would make his way to California, where he invested in Riverside County citrus groves. In 1900, at the age of 16, think about it, friends. Cabot would strike out on his own to sell family brand cigars in Alaska, and while there, he learned the Intuit language, became an interpreter. In the process, he transcribed the Intuit language for the Smithsonian Institute. Cabot had a natural gift for languages and would eventually speak 5: Sioux, Intuit, Spanish, English, and French. And you can find out a whole lot more over at the Cabot's Museum. Now, after a devastating California citrus frost in 1913, the Yerxa family's fortune was gone. So think of this. Put yourself in their shoes. All of a sudden, things are gone. Young Cabot had been to Alaska. He's now back. What's going to happen? Where could he go? Well, thanks to the Homestead Act, he was able to stake out 160 acres in what's now Desert Hot Springs. In 1914, he found water near the foot of Miracle Hill. He hand dug a well, and it was hot. He then went 600 yards away and found the cold water, and he named it Miracle Hill because it produced hot and cold water. It was a miracle. But the miracle that he found was actually 2 aquifers. The Desert Hot Springs aquifer, the hot one, and the Mission Creek aquifer, the cold one. And depending on what side of the earthquake fault you're on, you get hot and cold. So here's the earthquake fault, called the Mission Creek Fault. Hot water coming off of what would be Joshua Tree land, going deep into Mother Earth, hits the fault, and because of millennia of slippage, it has like a clay barrier, preventing the water from really going past it. There is some that goes down, but and many of this it's a mystery how it all came about. But if you drill a well here, you have hot water. You drill a well here, you have cold water. When my wife and I acquired the Kismet Lodge building on Mountain View Road, we had a well, and that's what got me interested in the water. Our well water was 105 degrees. We would pump 18 hours a day, 20 gallons a minute of pure, odor-free Mother Earth. And then all you had to do, as in Cabot, he dug a hand well a little bit further, and it hit cold. They didn't understand the science of what made the aquifers, what separates one aquifer from the other. Next slide. In 1918, he enlisted in the Army. Okay, so he's been to overseas, he's been to Alaska. Now he's going into the Army, World War I. And after he left the Army in 1919, he settled in Fertilla, now an abandoned ghost town southwest of India, where he operated a grocery store and was postmaster until 1924. And in 25, he returned to Europe to travel and study art for 1 year. And if you go to the museum, you can see some of his works of art, which are absolutely fascinating. On his return to the United States, he then went to Moorpark. And he operated a grocery store until he finally returned to the desert in 1937. Now, I don't know how this meeting happened, but in November of 32, a developer from downtown LA, LW Coffee, meets Cabot Yerxa, who at that time left the desert and now he's in Moorpark. Coffee learned of the hot mineral water in the area and decided that the area that Cabot had homesteaded would be an ideal place to focus on health. So this is now the formation of what becomes Desert Hot Springs. Coffee was born in 1876. He died in 1953. Born in Denmark, his family moved to Stockton, California when he was 6. He was managing a real estate firm in San Francisco in 1906. And he also managed a real estate firm in Newport Beach. And this is from an old newspaper ad. You can see his name down there at the bottom. So he was an entrepreneur. Cabot was an entrepreneur. And these two guys met together, now have something to talk about. Because I'm sure that Cabot was excited about the water he found in Desert Hot Springs, hot and cold, but he had no money.
Right.
He couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
And now here comes a developer. Next slide. So when you got water, you can build a city. And in 1932, a developer, who we just talked about, LW Coffee, meets Cabot. And now Coffee learns of the hot mineral water in the area and decides that the area that Cabot had homesteaded would be an ideal place for a town focused on health. So this homestead was 160 acres. To get the land, the person had to live on it 5 years, had to develop it, put a home, and maybe do a little bit of agriculture. Not like you're going to do a whole lot of that here at that time of the year of the world. When the well of water he had was when he hand dug. Go ahead. Cabot introduces Coffee to another fellow, W.G. Anderson, whom Coffee comes to the desert to meet. Coffee finds Anderson November 25th, 1932. For the next 3 or 4 weeks, Anderson becomes helpful in visioning with Coffee over the future of this part of the desert. And you say, Jeff, how do you know these dates? Thankfully, Coffee wrote a book entitled Desert Hot Springs, or Why Desert Hot Springs. And so a lot of this is extracted from that. Coffee returns to LA, sets up a trust whose beneficiaries are the various owners in the area that would become Desert Hot Springs. In 33, he begins to drill for water, leasing a small drilling rig and hiring Earl Howard. Drilling proceeded from early May until late June. The water in the well had a temperature of 140 degrees. And Coffee, being the entrepreneur, sold 14 one-acre lots. Now he's 57. He decides to build a bathhouse at Palm and Pearson, but not to be confused with his first spa. I found this interesting when I learned it. I had only known about the spa at 8th and Palm that he had built, which we'll talk about in a second. But this was sort of like a test. And this is a quote coming from YDHS. When we installed an electric light plant operated with an old Studebaker engine which supplied light for the bathhouse and the adobe, this plant furnished us about 12 lights, which was hardly enough. Coffee adds a butane gas range and begins serving meals. He applies for a beer and wine license, which is not hard to get at that time. Weekend crowds often sleep in their cars because there are no rooms. They were coming for this water. Medicine at that era was somewhat tied to things that we could test and try. The science of pharmacology and other things hadn't been developed. And there was value to the people of the hot water. So here's the visioning maps that Coffee drew out that we have in our possession, circa 1933. We have a county road here, which I'm not sure if that is indeed Dillon or Pearson. It's hard for me to figure it out because nothing is to scale. Here's Yerkes' hot water that Coffee describes, 15 foot deep, or 151 feet deep in that area. And then it's just fascinating. I'm trying to remember which way to decipher it, but you can see here's another guy named Jack Bennett. He had property here. Because remember, 160 acres was divided by whoever wanted to take the risk to develop it. Go ahead. In 38, the trust that Coffee tried to put together falls apart after 5 years of litigation. And by the way, I'm going to add something. This is the era of Coffee's life that I wish I had more data, and I think one day we'll probably find it somehow. It was, whenever you have lawyers and property, you have discussions, let's put it that way. So, prior to the termination of the trust, Anderson was killed in a car crash. Chandler purchased more of the land and includes the land on which Coffee's original bathhouse was constructed. Coffee writes, by that time I was really out on a limb, but I still had faith. 39, Coffee gets a letter from a Wardman, that's Aubrey Wardman, of Whittier, asking him to come to Whittier to talk. In discussion, Wardman asks Coffee, now that the Desert Hot Springs property has been returned to the original owners because of that lawsuit and all titles cleared, do you think you can build a community where there are people that can take advantage of the hot curative mineral water? If I would give you full charge and supervision of my 160 acres, you put in all your time laying out and improving the property, getting it ready for market, if I were to finance the entire deal. Aubrey Wardman was from Whittier, and ultimately he was the helper, financier for what became the first hospital in the valley, Angel View. And it was, the building is still located over there near Cabot's Museum, and it was literally the first hospital in a broad sense in the whole valley, aimed at helping kids with polio, getting them into the hot water where that would help their bodies be, shall we say, able to move easier and things of that sort. So another fascinating part of this area's history. Go right ahead. Coffee starts over by resurveying the area. Now, he's already been here, got disappointed, had to leave, comes back. Aubrey Wardman says, come to Whittier, could you do it if I financed everything? So can you imagine the ups and downs emotionally that he had? He sells the first house lots for $95, taking a loss on every one. He builds a tank house containing an ordinary household bathtub at Palmer Drive and 8th, and due to the great demand, he then builds a temporary concrete tub outside. 41, he builds and opens the first commercial bathhouse, 120 feet long, separate men's and women's sections. More than 2,000 people show up for the grand opening on July 12th and partied until 2:30 a.m. At that time, Desert Hot Springs consists only of one cafe and less than a score of homes. And this picture is indeed the first bathhouse that he made. This is what it looked like. A wooden structure, just absolutely fantastic. And some of these pictures that we're going to see next, look in the background. You don't see anything there because there was nothing else. Okay, go ahead. This is a cute little guy. I got this when I was president of the Historical Society. We got this picture given to us, and I did my best. Push the button again. This is the plaque. Dedicated, or Desert Hot Springs, God-given mineral water, dedicated to humanity, sponsored by A. Wardman and Bonnie Wardman, planned, built, and supervised by L.W. Coffee. This plaque donated by Lillian Coffee, July 12, 1941.
Wow.
The guy that sent me that picture was the adult version of that little boy, and I forget his name. All right, Ed?
Is that plaque still there?
Pardon me?
Is the plaque still there?
No, nothing of that is still there.
Oh, sorry.
You'll see in a second. No, that's okay.
I was wondering too.
So here's another shot of the wooden bathhouse. This was a postcard because that's how they marketed back in the day. And again, look in the background. We're at 8th and Palm. We would be looking probably towards what would be Mission Lakes Country Club area, somewhere over in that northwest corner. Go ahead. This is what it looked like from a distance. And then here's a new, on the far left was a little restaurant area. But again, there were no sleeping places. Nobody, you camped in cars. Go ahead. Here's an aerial shot of that building. And then we have a color of postcards at the bottom. I think it's interesting in that era, they would take a black and white and colorize it and enhance it. I have some of our old hotel, the Kismet Lodge building on Mountain View, and in the background it's all this green. Thinking, it was never that way. Yes, go ahead.
If I could interject there, on the left side, that was the cold water pool. And on the right side of the long building on the left was the hot water pool. And the bathhouses up to the right of that. And then there was this big grassy courtyard. And then the rooms on the far right, they had massage rooms in there. And my aunt worked there as a masseuse. And my mother had a gift shop in that long corridor area just between the hot water pools and the cold water pool. It was called VJ Gift Shop. And
Interesting.
she had it there for, I don't know, 5 years or something, until my brother left.
Now that must have been the second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit the next slide, please. This is the rebuilt spa. The first one was destroyed by a fire. The wooden structure consumed by a fire in 41, and then it was rebuilt 42, and this came from an era of what you're describing of 52. So let's think about from Coffee's perspective. His first one is destroyed by fire, and then he has to rebuild.
Bigger and better.
And as it turns out, that's the case. Go right ahead. So this was the entrance to the bath area. Go ahead. Here's this timeline. Foundation was laid in 41, he was 65. And why am I putting dates? Because I'm older too. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what did he do at their various stages of his life? I don't know if you do that, I do that. Open for business, July 12th of 41. And look at the framing of this. World War II, from 39 to 45, with Pearl Harbor in December of 41. So it's not like he's in happy times.
No.
47, a fire destroyed the first coffees, and he was 71. At that point, I'd say, oh, hang it up. Go ahead. 48, it was rebuilt bigger and better, and those are coffee's words, and bigger and better meant concrete and block. And we, the Historical Society, have a video of when, go ahead, hit the next slide. Coffee dies at 81 and 57, go ahead. And in 91, the city tore down Coffee's original, or the second, bigger, better. Why? Let me finish my sentence and I'll come back. What I think is the why. Go back, please. Let me see where to start. So, this bigger, better bathhouse was very institutional. In fact, the movie The Three Women, it's featured in there. And if you go on YouTube to look up the Hidden Waters of Desert Hot Springs, I have an hour presentation on various things, and also the Desert Hot Springs Spas, an insider story. You find both of those on YouTube. I have clips from the movie there that you can see how industrial it was, or how very sterile it was. Well, right next to Coffee's, what's across the street? Coffee's is no longer there, it's an empty lot. What's across the street was a brand new spa called Desert Hot Springs Spa that was built. And that had rooms to sleep in, that had pools, like 8 different pools were still there. And they had the opportunity to bring over from Coffee's. So it then became derelict. And what I don't know is how many years it actually, from when it shut its doors to when it was torn down. But another historian, John Hunt, who wrote the book Waters of Comfort, sent me a videotape, because he went there in 91 and videotaped them trying to tear down the bigger and better Coffee's, and it was harder than anything else because it was concrete and rebar, and it was, anyway. So did I answer the question what happened? I think they were superseded by the Desert Hot Springs Spa, having bathroom, or more spa centered. If I could have put some pictures here of what the interior looked like. It was very clinical, because that was their mindset. It was for healing, not for luxuriating. Okay, go ahead. So let's bring it all together. The town was founded by Coffee, now July 12th, 41. In 43, there were 200 homes and 2 cafes. And in 44, the post office opens on Pearson with Chester Bowman. No relation to me, but I like it. Chester Bowman being the first postmaster. Coffee put up the money, look at that, to provide for furnishings of the office, lights, water, heat, P.O. boxes, and transporting of the mail for a period of 3 years.
Wow.
This guy just kept giving. After getting knocked down, he got up and kept giving. Due to the growth of town, on September 5th, 46, a year ahead of schedule, the post office funding was taken over by the U.S. Postal Service line. And we have some pictures here. Go ahead. This was some of the first letters that were ever sent to the post office, or from the post office. Notice the post office mark, to L.W. Coffee's office in L.A. Dear Mr. Coffee, this is the first mail to leave the new Desert Hot Springs post office, so keep it. Please drop me a line. And I can't read. Neola Desmonds. I don't know.
Viola.
Yeah, Viola. Thank you, Viola. All right, next. Yeah, there. And then, dear friend Coffee, to you goes the privilege and honor of receiving and glory, or whatever, the first money order, serial number 1, post office, blah, 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 issued by the Desert Hot Springs Post Office. So he just sent him money order. And of course, again, the very bottom, the Bowmans. The postmaster did that in honor for LW Coffee. Go ahead. Now, what made the water so special, and it's still, what makes it still special today, the hot water? Here in the form of the analysis of parts per million, the fact that the water doesn't have a sulfur smell. When we brought our hotel up online and resurrected the well, I had a guest walk through the doors. And she goes, "This can't be mineral water. I don't smell any sulfur." And I go, "Ma'am, trust me, this is mineral water." We're like Baden-Baden, Germany. We do not have a sulfur smell. And there is sulfur, as it says here, there's sulfate in the water, but there's no sulfur odor. Lithium is just a little bit of a trace, 0.240, and you know, lithium is a calming factor that a lot of people use. And then you look down, the thing that I felt makes our hot water unique is the pH level. 8.3, I mean, drinking water is what, 7.5, 7.8, and this is a little higher than that, so your skin feels real silky smooth. And in the mineral water, you didn't wrinkle up, didn't have the reverse osmosis as much as we get from swimming pools. All right, go ahead, next one. Now we come to the spa city that develops, and check it out, go ahead. Oh, before you go, notice that is the Realty Company of America, that's LW Coffee. He's selling hotel lots, go ahead. From post-World War II to the 70s, Desert Hot Springs experiences a dramatic period of growth, especially at spas. Coffee started marketing spa properties, complete with water wells, for as low as $29.50 per month. I mean, come on. The city incorporates in '63. There were over, in this period of time, from 49 to 70, over 120 lodging facilities built in Desert Hot Springs. Now just think, you look around and you say, I don't see 120 hotels. Well, they weren't all big ones. If you drive down any of the numbered streets here and you see what looks to be a small apartment complex, more than likely they were part of this spa environment with a little well and a pool. Or they were providing rooms for coffees that didn't have any rooms. So this next slide, here's a list. I want you to take notes.
Wow.
Simultaneous at any point? Are these all there at the same time?
These were all in the area in that period through the 70s. Isn't that a mind blower? Go ahead at the next screen. I'm going to turn it over to Amber here in a second. When that presentation, I have one on the spas of Desert Hot Springs, the old ones, taking pictures before and postcards, postcards before and pictures after. The spas built this town. The hot water was the draw. Without the hot water, we would just be another little town on the side of a hill. But with the hot water, we have an industry here that kind of brought it all together. Some of those names had addresses, they changed names. But the 120 names at least represented people's hopes and dreams, and they thought that they could create something here, not unlike what my wife and I did for 16 years. Amber, your turn at that.
Alrighty. So 1948 to now, the amazing award-winning cold water. Next slide, please. So, long time ago, 1953, with a vote of 246 to 9, the county water district, Desert Hot Springs County Water District, was formed. They renamed it in 1987, Desert Hot Springs Mutual Water Company. There was 1 square mile, 10,000 feet of pipe, 5 water wells, and 2 reservoirs. Today, We have 1.25 million feet of pipe, 135 square miles, and we serve more than 40,000 residents. We have 13 water wells, 24 reservoirs, and we are responsible for providing water and sewer to our community here. Alan L. Horton, wastewater plant. So he was a board member from 1961 to 1973. They named the plant after him, which was constructed in 1972. They processed 2 million gallons, they now process 2 million gallons of wastewater a day. I'm sorry, go back one. In 1954, the local citizens petitioned for this service. The cost was prohibitive, so growth brought an overload of septic systems. The district built the wastewater plant so that they could hopefully expand, and now we're at 2.3 million gallons a day. So we went from 2,000 to 2.3 million a day, which is why we had to continue to grow.
Where's that plant located?
So this is the plant right next to Mission Springs Water Park,
Okay.
or not Water Park, Mission Springs Park, sorry, right next door. So the plant being named after Alan Horton, despite the community opposition, he had championed the wastewater treatment plant being something that was necessary. Necessary to spend money on, necessary to bring to the community, which we all know sitting here today was absolutely true. Next slide, please. Just last month, we celebrated the ribbon cutting of the Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility. And it will be providing up to 1.5 million gallons of wastewater per day. It was part of a $68 million state grant. I believe we were one in the top 6 of the state for receiving this large of a grant. It was named after another board member. We seem to have a habit. Nancy Wright, who was on the board from 1988 until 2022. It's located off of Little Morongo in 19th. You can see it on the 10 freeway. It's the one with the green roof, green building on the side. It blends in really nice to the desert. So at night, you can actually see it better because the lights surrounding the building and the water ponds, you can see it's actually kind of pretty. Now it's got all the Amazon construction next door, so you can see a lot going on in that area. The facility with 2 accompanying projects are almost 100% grant funded, which meant we didn't have to pay for it, guys. So that's really important. Let's see, sorry I lost my place. As we continue to see more demands on our groundwater, the regional plant is going to be something very, very important for our community because it's going to provide recycled water. And we're going to be able to start self-replenishing, which is going to be really important. Let's see. Nancy Wright was also, just to give you a little history on her a little bit, she fought to create the Groundwater Guardians, to preserve and protect our groundwater, really was the forerunner of removing the septic to sewer programs and fighting for those grants as we've gone along, and we're continuing to do so. Next slide, please. The award-winning cold water. So as you can see, since 1997 through 2022, we have received many medals at an international water tasting event. We have good tasting water, guys, right? And we get it for pennies. So it's really wonderful. And the reason it's good tasting, not as helpful as the hot water, right? But we still have so many minerals in our water. It's wonderful. It's good for you. Let's see here. Each February, the samples are taken to this international water tasting competition in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. And we are the only one in the world to have received all 3 medals. So that's kind of cool too. Go ahead to the next slide. On our groundwater protection, the goals were to eliminate pollution sources, reclaim water to reduce demand on our limited aquifer resources, protect the underground storage, and leverage as many funding opportunities as we can. Get as many other entities to pay for it as possible. We recognize the value and importance of our water, and since 1995, Mission Springs Water District's groundwater quality protection program has been working to continue, like I mentioned, converting those septic to sewers and getting across that 135 square mile service area. To date, we have converted more than 6,000 systems. We still have a lot to do, but we're continuing to progress on that every year. Preventing groundwater contamination is anywhere from 10 to 100 times less costly than it will be to treat it. So I'm going to take a little moment to go off of notes and off of everything else. We all enjoy the desert here. We all enjoy the beauty that we have. When you see something, say something. If you see somebody dumping, or if you see a leak somewhere, say something. It's all up to all of us and all of our neighbors to continue that protection and continue notifying those who can do something about it, right? So instead of just seeing it and going, oh, that doesn't look good, say something. Okay, I'm off my soapbox, sorry. Next slide, please. I'm gonna finish something and then I'll go to that. We also wanted to tell everyone that last year we started a very great program with the Desert Hot Springs High School. And so far we've welcomed 10 students through our intern program. They've worked in all the different aspects of our facilities, from the wastewater to the water to public relations, customer service, accounting, and we're starting to spark some of these young minds as to realizing that there are good careers right here. And we want them to go, learn what they need to learn, and come back, because we're seeing something in every water district, in every utility district. In fact, one of our neighbors in the valley a few months ago, due to retirements, lost 300 hours of experience from people retiring. So reaching out to these young people is a huge issue that we all have to tell them. Being a civil engineer, or being willing to work in a wastewater plant or a water district working to provide pipeline maintenance, very important jobs and great careers. So if you know of any young people, or middle, let them know. It's a good career. Okay, so 1961 to now, replenishment water, state water project. I am going to turn this over to my DWA counterpart, and he will talk about our state water replenishment project.
Thank you, Amber. So think with me now. You have a desert that is growing. We have sewers being put in, especially over the Desert Hot Springs aquifer, Desert Hot Springs aquifer and the Mission Creek aquifer to protect the groundwater. But how much natural inflow do we have? What is our natural yield from rain? It's not enough. So, next slide. I'm going to take us back one more step. It used to be the Desert Hot Springs Water Company, it used to be the Palm Springs Water Company, and before that, they were privately owned. And as both Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs started growing, the people said, hey, I want water too. And instead of, so they ultimately formed various companies. In Palm Springs, the Palm Springs Water Company was owned by a private individual, an Alva Hicks, a master carpenter who purchased the company in 1927. Under Hicks' ownership, the company played a crucial role in developing the region's water infrastructure, including the Snow Creek project, which provided water for the growing community. And that's all, of course, up against the hill in the Snow Creek area. Now, the Desert Water Agency, DWA, was formed, listen carefully, by the Palm Springs Water Company and the Desert Hot Springs County Water District as a special district. So you have Palm Springs, Desert Hot Springs, and the state came to the region and they said, hey, we're going to bring water down the state water project. Do you want part of it? Do you want to get in on it? And both Palm Springs, Desert Hot Springs voted, said, yeah, let's create the Desert Water Agency. So in 68, DWA, in 61, they were created, we all created the Desert Water Agency to ensure adequate water for the western part of the Coachella Valley. It was formed to provide a reliable water supply to Coachella Valley in this whole in California area, specifically Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs and surrounding communities. So here you have this group creating a third group. In '68, DWA acquired the Palm Springs Water Company and started providing water service to customers in Palm Springs and Cathedral City in '68. Next slide, I have an illustration. So we have the Desert Hot Springs County Water District, which sold retail water, still does, to our residents here. Palm Springs Water Company sold water to its residents there. They said, okay, we will form a third water agency that will bring in the replenishment water because our natural yield is not enough. And so it was created in '61. Then, next slide, Desert Water Agency, as we had read on four slides, DWA buys the Palm Springs Water Company, in essence becoming a wholesaler and a retailer of water. Mission Springs Water District purchases replenishment water from Desert Water Agency. So this unique arrangement has allowed myself, Director Gerald McKenna, and who we reside directly in Desert Hot Springs, along with Director Gracia, to be on the Desert Water Agency board. For years, we could be on that board, but we didn't have the population or the votes to get over there. And it was 2 years ago, or actually probably 3 in timing, that Desert Water Agency said, well, we'll go to districting, or divisioning. And they carved out a map allowing some of us over here on this side of the freeway to run for the DWA board. So that's how I was fortunate to get elected to go over there. Next slide. And this is the region of Desert Water Agency. All the way from the south end to the north end, the Desert Hot Springs area and county area in between. There we are. Next slide. And here is where the water comes in from the State Water Project. It comes from the Colorado River, 2 inputs at one at Windy Point, and if you're going down I-10, you can see the wind turbines, and off to the left as you're driving, you can see the areas at certain points where the water gets percolated into the ground. Go ahead, next slide. And then off of Worsley Road here in Desert Hot Springs, this is where the water percolates into the Mission Creek aquifer. Both percolation pond areas allow us to still be here because we didn't have enough natural flow of water. Next slide. So I want to close with this. L.W. Coffey said, the ranger, the prospector, and the homesteader who roamed over this desert area ever since the founding of the West never for a moment realized that this wonderful water is just beneath their feet. The huge aquifer, if you roll back time, Palm Springs had Snow Creek, and they could see it, and they had little canals and stuff going into Palm Springs. We had Mission Creek. We could see a little water coming in here when it rained, but we didn't realize until people dug wells what was beneath our feet. Next slide. In summary, our city was founded on and by water. Our hot water is unique. Very little hot water is found in the earth, and when people find it, it's sacred, it's special, it's unique. It comes right up out of the earth hot. Our well waters can go anywhere from 170 degrees down to like 98, 99 in our area. Our cold water is unique. As Amber illustrated, the Mission Creek Fault at the headlands of the watershed here has some of the most pristine water, cold water. Our future must focus on these natural resources, and we must protect them, hence the septic to sewer, and we must promote them, and that would be in the form of our hot water trials. Those who manage our water, MSWD, DWA, promoting, preserving Desert Hot Springs, visit deserthotsprings.com to tourism, and our DHS Historical Society. I'd like to say thank you, Amber, for doing this. Thank you for all the water people that are in this room. There's more water people than I think I've ever seen, unless it was a water conference. But to that end, about the presentation, do you have any questions or comments? Oh, yeah.
We are not VIPs. but we are interested, Palm
Yes, we
Springs.
are.
Of course you are.
But I was very interested in this presentation, being a friend of Paul Ortega's and learning more about this. It was a fascinating presentation, thank you. I would like to talk to both of you about presenting at a Palm Springs salon that we do monthly. Very interesting presentation. The question that sprang to my mind when listening to you talk about 120 different spa and hotels that sprung up over the time. Can anybody today build a home and dig a well for hot water in their backyard?
The answer is yes, if you have enough land.
No,
The rule is 3 contiguous lots,
Uh-huh,
and then of course the money to drill the well,
right.
and then the money to pay for the electricity to pump it up.
But let's just say I had all of that. You have a limited hot water aquifer, correct?
Yes and no. When my personal example at our hotel, we the well was dug in 1960 because that's when coffee was promoting everything, $29.50 a month, and they hit water at 70 feet,
That's
and it went.
very close.
I know, and then it goes down to our well was 200 feet.
Uh-huh.
But when we got the hotel in 03, the water level had risen. We hit water at 70 feet. Did I first say 80 and then 70? Okay, thank you. So original well, it hit at 80. We had the well revived and it was now at 70.
So when does it hit your floor?
Well, more significantly from the protecting sense, go back one slide. When does the septics that are in the hot water aquifer area, when does that water infiltrate the hot mineral water?
Right.
And when I was on the MSWD board, that was part of my challenge. We need to become off these septic tanks
Yeah,
to protect our hot water.
yeah.
So
Because they will fail.
they do fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, I have.
Not if, but when.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, and a follow-up, is it voluntary that people get off their septic system and not just city sewage?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna let Marion address that. She's staff and we can say, yeah.
We can say staff said it.
So technically, if you have sewer in front of your home, you are mandated to get onto it depending on how many feet away you are from that line. However, it's actually under the purview of the Colorado Regional Board, and at this point in time, they are not finding anyone who does not connect. However, if you go to sell your property, they will make you connect before you sell. Now, I say that, take that with a grain of salt. We don't have any major issues here, so they haven't come down and they're not finding people. But you just go up the hill up to High Desert,
Yep.
and they have some people up there that have not hooked to the sewer when they built the sewer in front of their homes, and they are threatening to start finding them up to, I think it was $1,000 a day if they don't connect. So, we could eventually end up in that place, we're not there yet.
And I would add to that, just the sheer amount of time often, you start a sewer project. When I was on the MSWD board, 35% of the town was sewered. When I left the MSWD board, we had 70%, which is an awesome growth.
Yeah.
But the cost, think about it, if we would have paid out of our, and also MSWD has done a phenomenal job of getting grants for the homeowners, so we don't have to pay the full amount.
Yeah.
However, if we would have paid the full amount in, let's say, 2018, for example, it'd be probably half the price that it would cost today to do it.
Right.
So I learned from observing that there's never a better time than the now if you can do it.
Well,
Because-
also, it's a public resource that's
Fully.
going to be polluted.
Okay, next question.
About that same topic, we live in Mountain View, which is adjacent to Mission Lakes. And when we moved here, we were told that, we were part of the city, because we were on the sewer. So hence we could vote for the city, in the city. But Mission Lakes
Mission Lakes.
Country Club which is, I think, 2,000 homes or whatever, it's very large, that is on sewer, and they are in the county, not on the city. So they can't vote, that's one thing, but they're county, and so they're on the sewer system, and we were told that they were trying to convince the homeowners to try to become, to transfer over to, so what about that? I mean, where is that
Let me
project?
start, and then I'm gonna do the same and turn it to Marion. Just a little bit of clarification. Mission Springs Water District does not have anything to do with the city lines at all. So our water district actually extends to just below Sky Valley and all the way to Whitewater, the community of Whitewater. So it's not constrained by the city limits of Desert Hot Springs. We serve a large area on this side of the freeway. So that clarifies a little bit there. I also don't believe that, so therefore it wouldn't matter whether they're already on our sewer or not, if they can vote or not. It's totally different. It has nothing to do with the water district. That clarifies one little bit. And then go ahead, Marion.
So, and I'd add on to that, you were talking about Mission Lakes Country Club.
Yeah.
That area is a very dense area. We actually did a study with the USGS back in, I wanna say 1985, where we identified that as a very sensitive area because of the density and the population, the number of homes, and how close they are. We have gone up to that area to get an assessment district passed multiple times, and it failed. Finally, it did pass, and it was approved back in November of 2019. And it's Assessment District 18, they are part of that assessment district. Right now, Mission Springs Water District is working with the Army Corps of Engineers to do the design phase of that project. And there's two big phases whenever you go to create the add sewer in some area. The first is your design phase, and your second is your construction phase. It's extremely costly to put in sewer lines. If you think about your utilities, sewer is your lowest utility in the ground. It's actually much easier to go in and build a brand new subdivision where you're engineering all of the lines with nothing there. You can engineer it real easy. But when you have to go in and you're almost backwards engineering it, you're trying to work around all the existing lines and the existing infrastructure. It's very costly from both a construction point and from a design perspective. And so we're in the final stages. We've been doing plan checks back and forth with the Army Corps of Engineers to finalize their designs there in AD 18. One thing that's very unique with our assessment districts, I'm sorry, I don't want to take over too much, is that we try to do 50% of the cost is borne by the homeowner or the landowner, and then 50% of the cost we go out and we get state and federal grants. It helps from a cost perspective. You might say someone in Cathedral Cove who recently did something, they were usually looking around $35,000 assessment on each property, where we're looking at anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 the last time we looked at doing an assessment. So it keeps the cost lower to do this 50-50 split, but it adds a lot of time to it, and that's unfortunate. We could build it tomorrow if everybody wanted to pay the 100% of the cost, but I don't know that our residents can really afford it. And one of the issues that specifically Mission Lakes Country Club is that we had a lot of part-timers there for several years. People who had just 2 people in the home, they're only there for 3 or 4 months. So in their minds, they didn't really see the need like those of us who live here full-time. We see the need, and we want to get those septic systems out.
Thank you, Marion.
Did I answer that?
Yeah, you did great.
Thank you.
And I will add just a little bit to that. Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting, and sewer, don't even talk about it. Because a lot of old timers in this town, I don't need no sewer. My septic is working fine until it doesn't. And then it's like 100 times more expensive to clean up the aquifers. One last question over here? All right. Oh yes, go ahead, brother.
You have an excellent video on the Historical Society website about building the aqueduct
Yes.
up here. Does Mission Springs get any water from that aqueduct?
Absolutely.
We do, actually. The Mission Creek replenishment allotment from the state water project is actually Desert Water Agency exchanges for Colorado River water, which comes from that.
Yeah. The state water project didn't make it this far. And at the time, Desert Water Agency felt it was wise to just say, all right, we'll exchange bucket for bucket water with Met on that. And what's interesting is we're all saying we need more water, so we'll probably be developing another approach to getting more water to go to our home.
Another reason, let me add, why it's so important we get everyone, including our industrial businesses in town, off of septic and cart out water for their sewer. We need that water to stay here. We need it to process through the reclamation center and through the plant so that it stays here and is clean before it comes back in and replenishes our aquifer.
Yep. One last one.
One last, how does the aquifer work? Because I know that you.
That's a whole nother presentation.